Thank you. Thank you very much. It is my enormous pleasure to introduce to you our gentleman of the evening. This is somebody who has played probably the most important role in my lifetime in the art of song. And I just, if you know his books, and you know his endless recordings, and if you know his endless 2 volumes on Schubert, please, if you don't, help yourselves to enjoy them, buy them, get them, because this is the great man to teach us all of that. And he's a very dear friend. I'm happy to say he became a friend over the years. So here is the great Graham Johnson.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. You know, we are going to hear some extraordinary singing this evening, and I'm absolutely convinced of it, and some wonderful piano playing, because even to have got as far as this wonderful room, the audition processes, the many people wanting to take part in this program, we can be certain that there is a high standard. You're going to hear wonderful vocal skills and pianistic skills. But the art of song, and we're concentrating on the art of German song, the art of Lieder, is something that requires, of course, a beautiful voice. It requires sometimes great pianism and subtle pianism. But it also requires something else called understanding. By understanding, I don't just mean knowing what the poems mean. It's more in the realm of a human understanding, so that when the music is filtered through a singing personality, we are aware of a profundity, an engagement, a spokesperson's role for that singer in bringing us some of the greatest thoughts articulated by extraordinarily gifted poets via the music that has come together with that poetry to enlighten and to double that poetry into something extraordinary. In other words, we are seeing the conjunction of 2 great works of art, whereby a German poem or a French poem, an English poem, is translated into a musical medium with the type of skill that, as we follow the poem, leaves us gobsmacked, because it seems so appropriate, because it seems so amazingly gauged in terms of word-to-music reaction. And for that to be apparent, we have to actually know that each one of these, tonight, 5 composers, 7 poets, has a different background and requires a different element of understanding. Composers are our great friends. As one goes through the business and works with them all the time, they become living people to us. They actually become very differently and very separately individual personalities who have contributed this amazing repertoire for us. And so really what I'm trying to say is that the wonderful playing and the wonderful singing we take, however arrogant that may seem, as a given. We have to accept, however, that rather annoyingly for some very beautifully voiced people who are not as vocally gifted have nevertheless become very great song singers. And that should teach us a lesson, that the type of understanding and refinement and musical skills that are very much part of this work, the respect for the poet, the respect for the composer, an idea of style, an idea of how music differs across the centuries, and it's not just simply used as material that we give out, irrespective of where it comes from, how it comes from, and what it's saying. And that is the testing ground, and that is why the great song singer is one of God's chosen few. There are many, many more great singers than great song singers. It's testing. It's like being a great Shakespearean actor. It's not for everybody, but my goodness me, when it's done well, it is at the top of the professional list of accomplishment and respect. I'm sure we've got many stars here tonight, and it's a privilege for me to be here. So I would ask us, please, without further ado, to invite Veronika Anissimova and Cameron Richardson-Eames to begin our evening. The song that is beginning is perhaps the very beginning of art song. You know, there's all sorts of wonderful vocal music up until the 1770s and 80s, but it really is Mozart together with Haydn who begin to write songs with properly written out accompaniments, not just figured basses, and this is an upbeat. This type of music, Mozart's leader, he didn't write many songs. We're going to hear perhaps the greatest of all of them. This is an upbeat to the work of Schubert, the later work of Beethoven, and of such heavenly beauty, isn't it? Let's just go straight into the music, because all of you have been given your translations. And I would beg you, ladies and gentlemen, to follow what's being said, because it's what is being said, no matter how angelically vocally, it's what is being said that inspires the composer to make very specific choices, and we'll be discussing those. So let's begin. To stop you there. It's a very long song, and I just want to give you my first impressions. Certainly the mood of resignation, of feeling that it's evening, it's the evening of life, it's the time to take reckoning of your entire life's achievements, the time of parting. And you know, Mozart, who died so terribly young, without knowing that he was going to die, there's something extremely touching about this. But also, Mozart is Mozart, and what we must always remember, if we know anything about Mozart's chamber music or piano concertos, if we know anything about Schubert's string quartets, is that the leader world doesn't get some kind of wonderful free pass to behave differently just because it's with voices. Can I just show you something at the piano? I don't know how you would... Would we play like that?
Probably not.
No. You see... Don't try and extract so much emotional meaning out of this music.
Okay.
It's far too shaped and far too starting and stopping. And basically, unfortunately, you have here an old edition from the Mozart edition, and it is actually Andante alla breva. If you were to use the Neue Mozart Ausgabe, you would see that it's got to be counted in 2, not 4. And when you have a lighter voice like yours, it just carries on, and it becomes, it has to be a tinge of sadness, but it's not woeful. It's not very, very, very significant in a romanticized manner. This is music of limpid grace. By the way, in terms of performances of it, I think absolutely wonderful is someone like Barenboim in this when he performs it with Fischer-Dieskau. We don't need very much pedal, if any. Come in with me. It's like that. In a way, it's easier because otherwise it goes into sections and it becomes boring. If it isn't just that in 2. The other thing is that avoid doing at the cadences automatic ritornello. Silber, silber. I can assure you that if you were doing one of the Mozart roles and a conductor was there, they wouldn't be stopping at every cadence. You've got to imagine yourself singing Ach, ich fühl's, that's full of feeling, and there are moments, it's not like a metronome, of course it isn't. No Mozart is, no real music is like a metronome. But when you've actually got a piece like, Susanna, for example, you don't actually do rubatos in between to make it meaningful. Mm-hmm. The extraordinary limpidity of this, the way it unfolds. By the way, the idea of those sixths haunted Schubert. I'm absolutely certain that Lindenbaum from Winterreise is a result of those wonderful sixths. Just let's start it again. And in a sense, although it's so beautiful and so deep and actually the most profound song that Mozart ever wrote, we don't want to actually celebrate its greatness every bar, or we don't need to show how much we love it. Just let it unfurl. Let's start again. going to make another. It's in terms of shape, I much prefer that. To make up for the fact that you can't actually do lots of rubatos, expressive leanings, and ritordandos, your text needs to be more projected. It's a little bit anonymous. You've done your work, there are no mispronunciations, etc. But, and also can I say that with this particular weight of voice, and every singer's got a different weight of voice, just be careful in the piano part to keep it lighter. It's just slightly too thick in texture as a support, and that's even with the lid thing. It's got to be, one's also got to have in mind the feeling of an earlier instrument than a great big thumping huge Steinway. It's got that sort of eloquence. I mean, I think that the song right at the end where it goes into a sort of cadenza type thing, there is space there to do a little bit of time. But the challenge is to get in the color of the voice, the sadness of parting. And too many people create or try to create a song's color by using rhythmic displacement rather than vocal color. The Abend, you don't need to rubato it, but the color and the regret, in a sense, it's a very difficult thing because it's like somebody saying, well, it's my time to die and I've lived my life as best I can. On the other hand, you're not saying, oh, it's my time to die. Mm-hmm. It's a sort of acceptance and gentle regret. Mm-hmm. And that's what's rather tough in the song. It's got to be, well, I mean, let's face it, Mozart is the hardest of the hard because there's an element of elegance, translucence, shaping that actually is pre-romanticism, but has the elements of the most enormous depth in it. And just purling away. Just could we go, I'd like to just go from just towards the end. Could you go from Sie dann sanft?
Sie dann sanft, sie dann sanft auf mich herab. Bei mir eine Träne und ach, schäme dich nur nie, sie mir zu wein, wo sie wird in meinem Diademe, dann die schönste Perle sein, wo sie wird in meinem Diademe. Dann die schönste Perle sein. Sie wird die schönste Perle sein. Die schönste Perle sein.
As in a great deal of great music, what you don't do is more powerfully expressive than what you do. What you choose to refrain from doing is part of the discipline and sadness of this relinquishment that you are making of life. I found that acceptable in terms of the cadenza at the end. I found the balance much improved. I found the tempo better. The whole thing now, other than by using rubato, could come to slightly more vibrant life. We've got so little time, and you know, this is one of the great songs. I'd just like, we're not going to be able to work in detail on your other song, but I'd just like to hear its opening and for us to work a few minutes on it anyway.